That'll be the familiar look to me. Hey, everybody.
Looks like we're live.
Hey, Dewey. We're live now.
Hey, Patrick. We are live now. We can mention everybody
Yes.
in the comments here. I've been reading them as they've been coming in. Got a good group
Nice.
starting out already.
Yeah, I see Wind Road Therapy. Hi, Des. New biker who's up way early in the morning over there. Schultze,
Yeah.
Pete's 1800, Bob Nelson. Hey, guys, how are you? They're my Cracker Barrel buddies. And Schultze 89 GTA, your buddy.
Yeah, that's Mike, who's in all my videos that are coming out right now. You're seeing his BMW 1250 in a lot of them.
Excellent. Yep. I see Boots and Jeans Riders. I'm assuming it's Rich. Maybe Cake too. Hi, folks. Paul Beardsley, Road Glide Andy. This ought to be good. I'm looking forward to this. I've got a ton of questions for you.
I'm looking forward to answering them. As we sort of chatted about it offline. Is all the stuff that I don't think to share that you're interested in is probably the exact same things that everybody else is interested in knowing, that are just things that I don't think about at this point.
Right. So for anybody in the comments, in the chat, please, if you think of any questions, put them in the comments. Dewey's going to be watching this, and I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. Maybe I'll cover some you have, and if not, feel free to just ask a question. I'm ready to get started. What do you think?
Let's jump in, and like I said, as people will pop in, people ask questions.
Right. Yeah, which will be awesome. And so, as you can see, my first question is, how long ago did this become something you thought of and started actually thinking about wanting to do it?
That's a interesting question. It's because
we should probably tell people what we're talking about first.
Sure. For anybody who's not aware, I'm leaving in about a week's time now. I'm down to my last week. Initially, I'm going to ride from here in Portland, Oregon, all the way to the southern tip of South America is sort of the first goal. So I expect that to take about 10 months or so to get down there. And from there, I'll ride back up to probably Buenos Aires and then Brazil, and then kind of redecide what I want to do from there, whether I'm going to ride home, whether I'm going to, ship the bike to Miami and ride up the East Coast and see people and work my way across the US, whether I'm going to go to Europe and start riding east, because I've always wanted to go to the stands and see the Himalayas. So, potentially that's an option. I will kind of, when I get to the tip of South America, I'll reevaluate where my budget's at. I'll reevaluate if it's something I really want to be doing. I'm taking a huge chunk out of my life to go do this, and I don't want to continue doing something I'm not enjoying. So it may be that I'm just ready to be home. So we will.
How long do you think it'll take to get down there?
The goal is to try to hit the southern tip of South America, kind of January, maybe February at the latest of 2024, because of the weather. It's, as far south as going into central British Columbia is north. So you have to time it during their summer. And so I want to get there during their summer, which is, December, January, kind of February at the latest.
Okay. And that brings up a question I was going to get to later, but we're here now. How have you planned out the weather, accordingly? Obviously, you've planned out going down to South America and down to the tip. What about other parts of the world? Are you worried about getting there at the wrong time of the year, like rainy season, snowy season?
Rainy season, I can't avoid. The reality of going from north to south is at some point you're going to cross the rainy season somewhere. It's just a matter of where, and I don't know where I'm going to hit it. Part of it depends on the weather and what happens, but probably somewhere in Central America. Kind of the Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama is probably where I'll hit the rainy season. That'll probably be the part. And then the real point is, you have a limited window for the high passes in the Andes and Patagonia. That's the area where you're really kind of weather dependent, and you have to get at certain times. The rest of it is just kind of suffering. If it's wet, you have to maybe stick to more paved roads and deal with being wet. But when a pass is snowed in, you can't go, you can't get there. So.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you. So you have a certain time frame that you need to be at the high passes if you're going to do them, and you know what that is, and you're going to obviously try to get there at that time.
Yeah, the ones that I can. There's always things that you can't get to. You can't have it all, so to say. There's going to be things that I miss.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So going back to the original question, when did this all start coming up for you? Like how many years ago?
That's kind of it's a tough one to answer because it sort of came in stages, and you thinking about doing something like this, you kind of go through 3 stages of it. You say that sounds like something interesting that I'd like to do. You go to the point of, that's something that I actually do want to try to figure out how I'm going to do it. And then you get to the point of going, okay, I'm really going to put in the effort and make this happen and set a timeline for it. So, the reality is that when I did my Alaska trip and I spent a month on the bike, and I realized how natural it felt after a couple of weeks, you kind of get in a routine of being on the bike. And when I got to that point, that's kind of when I said, this is something that, somewhere in my lifetime, I'd like to do a really big trip. And, the North and South America, the around the world type trip is something that I want to do at some point. And at that time, I had no idea of when or how I was going to even come about it. But that's really when I had the first thoughts of this is something that I want to do. Then,
so it wasn't a YouTube personality or a YouTube video. It was your trip to Alaska that made you think, oh, I could do this for a long time.
Yeah, that was the one. That was really where it did. I mean, there's certainly inspirations that go well back beyond YouTube. Before really anybody was doing motorcycle videos on YouTube, when Schulte here and I, were riding our old bikes, in places. I read Jupiter's Travel, and I used to carry a copy of Jupiter's Travel by Ted Simon in my luggage with me when I'd go camping solo. And I'd sit and read about his travels through Africa and South America, back in the 70s on his old Triumph.
Yeah.
So there was certainly that itch there long before YouTube, and then there's obviously plenty of people on YouTube for inspiration to go watch and see it. And when you see other people do it, you kind of go, I can do this. But in the back of your head, there's always the, can I really do it? Right? There's a difference between seeing somebody do it and going, can I actually go do this? And after riding for a month, into Alaska, I sort of said, yeah, I think a long-term trip is something that I can do and that I'm interested in doing and that I want to do.
That's awesome that you were your own inspiration. I love that. And just quick side note on the Jupiter's Travels. Can you imagine doing the trips that he did way back then before we had all this technology and stuff and, just paper maps and the whole bit?
And, this is probably for people who have read Jupiter's Travel, if you haven't, hopefully this isn't a spoiler alert. And if you haven't, go get a copy of Jupiter's Travels and read it. But, the fact that he didn't always even have maps. He's asking people and they're drawing in maps and they may or may not be accurate. National Geographic had places they didn't know, or they had chunks of maps missing in countries that he was going through. Not just doing it without technology. Oftentimes he didn't even have really usable maps in some of these places. So those guys are, the people that were doing it back then are just a whole different type of tough. They, I have a huge amount of admiration for what they did and for inspiring a bunch of people to go do it now.
Right. I think that's a big thing, is that back then the adventure was much more of an adventure. There was a lot less of a safety net, but yet it has inspired people of our generation, our age group, our technology age group, to want to go out and do it. And I just think that's amazing.
Yeah. And, it's come and gone. It's there's the bearded grump. I assume it's I assume it's just
Probably Greg.
okay, yeah. I don't know if Timmy uses the internet or not, or if he just appears on it. But yeah, there was a lot of between them, Ewan McGregor and Charlie, and the Long Way Around series. They did that a long time, probably before anybody was doing it on YouTube. I don't know if YouTube was a thing when they did their first one. So there's been a lot of
I'm not even sure it was either, but I think that was an awesome series, and I think that really got so many people interested in doing it.
Yeah, best marketing choice BMW ever made.
No kidding. What was the very first thing you did that was, okay, I am now committed to this? Did you tell somebody I'm going to do this and there was no going back? What was that first thing you did that said, okay, I've taken that first step, there's no going back now?
Well, I mean, I think right up until I leave, there's a going back if things changed. If we went into a world lockdown again and no borders were open, right? There's a going back. There always is. But I think the point that I was really committed to it was when I sat down and I did a realistic budget and said, what is it going to take to do this, and what do I need, and how am I going to get there? And I set about a savings goal for every month. I need to put X number away for this month, and I need to do it for the next X number of months, right? And to figure out how to do this. And that was really the first thing. As much as wanting to do something, you have to be realistic that it takes some certain things to fall into place. You can't just, there's people who do it, and I don't know how they do it. They're amazing, who just wake up one day and say, I'm going to sell everything and go do a trip like this. I'm not that person. So I had to plan and make sure that I could find a way to fund it and budget for it. And so that was really the first step was saying, okay, I'm going to set a goal to get enough money put away to be able to do this, that I can use for this trip, and have a realistic goal and a realistic budget.
I think it's funny to hear you say that there are people that just wake up and just go and do it, and how that amazes you, because I think a lot of us are amazed by the way you're doing it. Because, for me, I got married in early 20s, had my kid, had my whole life here, my homebody life. And it's not until my son's grown up and I'm able to actually go out and do some things now. But even so, going on a month-long trip, even if I'm just going on a vacation, going to visit mom or something like that, it's hard to get away for that kind of period of time. So it's amazing to me what you're doing. And then for you to be amazed by what somebody else has done, it's just kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's people doing amazing things, and I think that, like anything, I've said it on my channel a lot of times, and I try to say it over and over, is things that were an adventure to me 15 years ago might not be an adventure now, and that's the same for everybody. And anytime you're doing something new and pushing yourself to try something, it's an adventure, and it's not a comparison, because somebody's experiences change what an adventure is to them. So I'm just at the point where what I want to do to push myself is something different than what it might be for somebody else. That doesn't make it more or less adventurous than the way somebody else does it.
Do you think that it's a comfort level thing, that you've reached this comfort level with all the things that you currently do, so now you're pushing yourself beyond that comfort level by taking this epic trip? Is that kind of the part of the reasoning? I'm going to do something that isn't easy to me.
Yeah, there's part of that, and it comes in stages. There was a time when I didn't go on a motorcycle trip where I didn't have every night planned out and know where I was going to be staying. And now most of the time I leave on a trip without a single reservation. It's pretty rare that I make reservations anymore, because I've gotten comfortable with not having them and not needing them. And so it's always a progression. I think that we all go through it as we ride, and whether it's being scared of going around a hairpin corner to dragging a knee, right? You just do it enough until you get comfortable with it.
That is so funny because you've seen I've done a couple of videos on the V-Strom with my buddy Roger, and one of the things we've talked about is it's not a skill level thing; it's a comfort level thing. And so we go out on the dirt roads. You saw I crashed the V-Strom that one time. I wasn't comfortable. Now I'm getting more comfortable. So people think, oh, well, you're getting more skilled. No, I'm just getting more comfortable with it. And then I'll push it a little further and get myself to my discomfort level, try to get past it and keep going that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's the same with me. I'm terrible on sand. I cannot ride on sand to save my life. I keep watching, the bearded grumps in here who he loves the sand, and he does it on a massive motorcycle. So hats off to you guys.
And fully loaded.
But I am terrible in sand. Every time I've ridden it has not gone well. And there's a lot of sand on my trip. So I'm going to push that comfort zone and find out, and learn. Hopefully I learn how to ride in sand. Hopefully I get good at it,
Well, you'll come back and you'll be telling Bearded Grump how to ride sand, even though he takes that V-Strom 1000 fully loaded all the way down to the rally and just cruises right through it.
Yeah. But that's the fun part about, something like this is you have every conceivable type of terrain is somewhere along this trip. If you can dream it up, I can find it along the way somewhere.
Is there any place, I know I put a question up here, but I'm going off script. Is there any place that you already know you're going that has, other than the sand you were just talking about, has something really tough that you're going to have to deal with, like the Darien Gap? Are there places along the way that are going to be big issues that you are already anticipating?
Yeah, one of the big ones, because I've actually, and anybody who looks, I have a 6.5 gallon fuel tank on the DR that I'm taking, which is massive for a motorcycle like that. And then I also have a Rotopax. And then I added a Rotopax to it. And I've had people say, what in the world do you need all that gas for? But one of the things I want to do, there's a route in Bolivia called the Lagunas route. And it runs from the Salt Flats in Uyuni all the way to basically the Chilean border. And in the shortest, sort of best route you can do, it's 350 to 400 miles of nothing but off-road, and it's all at 14,000 feet or higher elevation. So it's a tough route. People say it's tough to navigate because there's kind of random tracks going every which direction. You never know which one you're supposed to be on, and a lot of washboarded, rutted off-road routes and high elevations, so you get tired really easy, and it's a long go with nothing in between it for water or gas or anything. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to because it looks incredibly beautiful. It looks incredibly neat and remote. And there's very few, I think, really, truly wild places like that where you're just out there doing that stuff.
And for me, at my age and everything, that is something that sounds very intimidating. I'm not a risk taker. But before we go on, I wanted to say we've got kind of an international thing going here. New biker from London, Into ADV, which is Pete down in Australia, and then Windy Therapy, Eddie. He just came in from Canada. So thanks all for being here.
Yeah, and Wendy's there, and then all my friends are in here. Bart, Mike. So that's good to see my Portland friends here.
Excellent. That's awesome. All right. This is kind of a loaded question because I know there was probably a lot more going on in your mind for a very long time. But once you decided this is the date I'm leaving, how long did it take to gather up all the stuff you knew you were going to need versus the stuff that was just too much you couldn't bring? How did that all come about, and how long did it take from, okay, I'm leaving on such and such a date, to actually being ready to leave?
A lot of it was ready to go. Most of the stuff I'm taking is stuff that I pack on every trip. I really only have about 4 to 5 days worth of clothing with me, and that's all I ever take. That's the most I take anyway. And I just, do laundry in a hotel sink or stop at a laundromat or something along those lines. So that stuff was pretty much ready to go. Same with all my camping gear. It's all the same stuff I use with a couple of exceptions. I changed some of my cooking stuff for this trip just out of necessity for fuel, and being able to handle the fuels. The bigger stuff was really the paperwork, making sure all of that was in order, and going through everything and going, is this really what I want? And also, one thing I've never done before that I have to do on this one is try to edit videos and stay in touch with people, along the way.
You better do that.
Well, yeah. When I do a 2-week trip, I don't take a laptop. I don't edit, right? I just take enough SD card space to store the whole 2-week trip's worth of footage and then edit it all when I get home. And so this one, I'm going to be trying to do it all on the road. So I have all the stuff to be able to do that. That's the wild card that I had to add in, was carrying a laptop, all the batteries and stuff to be able to do what I need to, all of that. And as Bart says, I'm a parts hoarder. I keep every motorcycle part and every car part I've ever bought, and whether I need it or not, it's in a box in a shelf somewhere. So I have a lot of stuff. I have all my camping gear. I have 4 or 5 tents, and even when I buy a new one, I tell myself that I might need that other tent somewhere down the road, or there might be a reason to keep it, so it's in a box somewhere, on my old tents and everything.
Well, I have a reason. You need to bring one of the tents with you in case you do come up the East Coast, so that I can have it. You can give it to me.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to carry one just in case.
South America and back.
If you need a tent, I can throw it in UPS for you.
Okay, yeah.
I have to go find it in my storage. Yeah, I have to go find it in my storage unit now. Everything I have, I'm down to what I have on the motorcycle, and a backpack of clothing is all I have now. Everything else is put away.
And that kind of goes with this question. What are some of the things you had to do, like putting stuff in storage? Did you sell stuff? I mean, how did you make this happen? Not the bike stuff, but all the stuff to get ready to get on the bike.
Yeah, everything's in storage. I canceled the lease on the place that I was living and put everything's in storage. I had to do a bunch of paperwork and have some funny stories, because there's some things that you don't think about that I had to do. One of them was I was going to be gone for 18 months, is the goal. And my driver's license was set to expire partway through that. But the state of Oregon here doesn't renew driver's license until they're within 6 months of expiration. So
no. I
had to convince the DMV to go against their policy and give me a driver's license early. I had many bad thoughts about how to go about doing it. I thought about, losing my license and trying to find out if it would get renewed if I lost it and things. But yeah, I was able to. I got really lucky. I'm sure she's not watching. I got maybe the greatest DMV employee I have ever had. She was friendly and helpful and was interested in my trip and wanted to help me in any way she could. So I have a license. I have all my registrations renewed. I have all my paperwork at the DMV taken care of, thanks to that wonderful lady who helped me get everything done early and threw the dates out the window and just let me renew it all. Yeah,
that's awesome. Like you said, DMV, that's kind of unexpected.
Yeah. She must have been new at the DMV and she didn't hate the world yet. Is all I can figure.
Right. So before I go on to my questions, what do you think about this one here from Eddie?
My Spanish is no bueno, Eddie. I actually, during the lockdown, I took 3 semesters of Spanish class online because none of the community colleges here were open for in-person. And I actually can understand a fair amount because I listened a lot, but over online learning, it was really hard to get to practice speaking Spanish. So I'm not very good at speaking it, but I have a plan for that. One of the things I'm going to do is stop along the way for probably a month or so and do a Spanish immersion course where I'll live with a host family and then go to classes during the day and get a chance to keep practicing it. So that's definitely on the list of things to do, and it's one of the list of things to do fairly early into the trip is go do that and try to get my Spanish skills up.
That's awesome.
And as Pete says, Telemundo. I watch Telemundo. I watch several Spanish-speaking motovlogs too, actually, just so I get to hear it. And there's some good motovlogs too. So I do that. And try to listen. But
So you think you have enough to
get
get
by
by
until I learn
until you
that.
do the immersion?
And it's one of those, when you're forced to use it, those 3 semesters of Spanish may come back to me. It's just I just haven't gotten a chance to use it repetitively enough to feel confident with it at all. So
Mm-hmm. I had Spanish for years in high school, but then I stopped taking it, and I can probably understand a little bit more than I think I can understand, but I'm lost.
mm-hmm.
So now I know you did a live stream with Tomek. You talked all about the bike and how you prepped it and all this, but just for folks here who may not have seen that, tell us a little bit about what you're riding. I know, and the modifications you've made to it.
Yeah, it is a Suzuki DR650, and I did a ton of modifications to it. I made a list of pretty much any known problem with the DR650 or any known failure point, and I corrected it along with a lot of things to make it more comfortable, and like suspension, seat, handlebars, windshield, luggage, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty customized for what I want and what I want to do.
Well, you did some specialty things with the lights. You put some LEDs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so that
a
you
lot
can
of
see
lighting
in the dark.
Well, it's a combination of so I can see in the dark. I hope to not ride after dark. My plan is to not do it, but things happen,
Mm-hmm.
things go wrong, right? But it's also to be seen. That's why I have those bright yellow fog lights that are on all the time. Is that gives you the nice triangle pattern with your headlight, and that yellow stands out. It makes me a lot more visible, which is
Right.
my own safety as well.
So safety first. Safety first.
Yeah, and I'll answer new bikers. Question. Yes, I am planning to upload videos during the trip. I don't know exactly how quick I'll be able to crank them up. I'll tell you this: I'm not gnarly. Don't expect itchy boots type of 3 days, three a week type of videos. I'm not going to be able to do that. But if I'm lucky, I want to be able to try to do a weekly video. Currently, I only do a video every 2 weeks. My goal is to do a weekly video all the way along the way to keep everybody a little more updated, and so that I have less footage that I'm dealing with every time I go to do a video too.
Yeah, just don't miss the good things.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of nights in hotel rooms, where there's, it's after dark. I'm not going to go wandering around whatever town I'm in after dark and just sit in my hotel room and edit a video.
I am so glad. As a guy who's probably close to your parents' age, I'm really glad to hear that. So Eddie's got a good point there. That's kind of cool. And I bet he's right. 95% of the time you try speaking to someone, they'll help you out.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. When I did the Morocco trip and we went to Spain first. Both in Spain and Morocco. Just a couple words of trying, and they can tell that you can't speak it very well as soon as you say the first word. They know, but they were all incredibly helpful. I think that's most people in the world. I think most people, generally want to help, as long as, especially if you're, trying to communicate with them, they'll try back. The only place that hasn't been the case for me is in Paris. So I probably shouldn't offend anybody and say anything about the Parisians, but everywhere else in the world, people are pretty friendly.
So I'm guessing you're not going to Paris on this trip?
I don't plan to, no. Western, that's one of the hardest. I would love to at some point go do a long-term trip in Western Europe, but it is so expensive. Of all the places in the world that you can travel, Western Europe is about as expensive as it gets, just for hotels and food and everything. It's incredibly expensive. So
you've been out of the country on a number of times traveling.
Yeah, I would, not as much as some people, but more than others for sure. Okay.
Do you find that most places you'll find English speaking? I can't speak English. You'll find English speaking people?
Yes and no. There's always places where there aren't, but there's also been times where out of nowhere, one of the times in Morocco, we were trying to order food, and my French was apparently the best French in the group, and all the French that I know I learned from Pepe Le Pew. So and we were trying to order lunch, and the waiter was really struggling with us, and he was very, very kind and trying, his absolute best to figure out, what we want. And a guy from, 3 or 4 tables over walked over in perfect English, that I studied English in London. Can I help you get some food going? And, how are you enjoying our country? We're glad you're here. It was, you have people pop up when you need them, but you can't always, but I certainly am not going to go anywhere and count on somebody speaking English.
Right. Well, that's awesome. You'll know Spanish and English, so hopefully those are the only languages you'll have to deal with. Now, I mentioned the Darien Gap earlier, but this is Roger, my buddy that I've been riding with.
Yeah.
I'm
Roger.
Are you going through the Darien Gap, and how are you going to do it?
No, I mean, I'm going around it. You have to be either seriously hardcore or seriously crazy to try to go through it. Okay. But I'm going to do one of two things. There's a couple of companies down there that specialize in getting motorcycles between Panama and Colombia. And it will really kind of depend on the timing of when I get there and what's easiest. I'm either going to put it in the belly of an airplane and fly from, Panama City to Bogota or something like that, or it's going to go on a boat and go, into Cartagena or something like that. They're both really similar options. It's a matter of when you get there and timing, because it may be that the next container shipment to put your bike on is 2 weeks out, and if you're in a hurry, you put it on an airplane. It may be that there's a container ready to go, in 2 days, and then you just put it on the ship. So,
that was going to be my question next to was, how long does it take if you did it by boat, if you were able to time it right and get it on right away?
I think it's about 3 to 4 days for a container to get there. There used to be a couple of sailboats that specialized in taking motorcycles and groups of travelers, and they took, I think, 3 days to do it, but they've since shut down. So your best bet now is, there's a couple of companies. There's a company called Overland Expo, and all they do is ship everything from those big manned semi trucks that the Europeans build to go overlanding around the world in, to motorcycles. Right. And they do it all. Every day of the week, they're sending stuff or organizing. So that with them, it's just a matter of talking to them. And, somebody has a Land Rover that they're putting in a container, and they have 4 feet of extra space at the end because their Land Rover is not that long, and they put the bike in the back in the container because it's already going, and it goes. So it's just a matter of finding the right contacts for that stuff and having it ready. So when you get there, you talk to them and find out what the best option is.
Right. That goes back to my question about, what are the things you had to do that were non-bike related? So you must have spent a lot of time online learning and contacting people to be able to do all the things you're planning on doing, like the immersion with the language.
Yeah, a lot of reading from, people who have done it, and talking to them, sending messages to them. And, most people are pretty easy and are happy to respond and happy to help too, and, then finding Facebook groups and stuff. There's a Facebook group or something for everything, right? There's whatever it is you do, there's somebody else doing it. So I'm in a couple of Facebook groups and I've got contacts for people, that are doing the exact same trip I'm doing, and we're going to be in some of the same places at the same time. And I've already got some contacts of people that are riding down at the same time period. So if we run across each other or meet up with each other along the way, we have that option.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I can answer we're still on I can answer Paul's question. Yes, my shot records are up to date. Some of them were really easy, things like yellow fever, because I've been to East Africa before. So I had a yellow fever vaccine already. And that one is now, it used to be 10 years, and it's now good for the rest of your life. So if you've ever been vaccinated for yellow fever, you're set. So that's done. I had to get a tetanus booster because I was a little bit out of date on that. And I think I have a shot card that I got, but I think it was a typhoid booster as well, was one that I needed. And then malaria prescription for a couple of areas that I'm going through where I'll need a malaria prescription.
Your buddy Bart says you're going to be an American sugar mama.
Well, you never know what's going to happen.
And then new record through this one up there. I think I know the answer to that. You're just going to be you doing you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. If for some reason, I took off on a trip and I had 50,000 subscribers all of a sudden and I could make money doing it, great. But I planned assuming that I'm not going to make a dime on that trip. If realistically, just kind of because of what I do for work, if I really needed to earn money along the way, taking a short-term contract is probably a better option for me to earn money if I needed it.
Okay. I think you told me once that you can do your job remotely if you had to, so you could kind of earn some money no matter where you were, as long as you had good internet.
Yeah, if I needed to. I mean, I'd have to find somebody willing to give me a contract or something that fit what I do. But yeah, there's probably options that would be that I could probably make the money I needed with a lot less effort than trying to sell gear on a website with my logo on it or my face, right? I mean, there's about 6 people in the world that would buy a t-shirt with my face on it.
I would, just so you know, I would. All right. That kind of leads into what gear are you using to load this DR650 up with?
Okay. So my saddlebags are Moscow Backcountry 35s, which is a misleading name because they are not 35 liters. They're only 35 liters if you add their extra storage pouch on the side. As they come, they're only 30 liters. So I have the two 30 liter side cases, and then I have a 46 liter top box. And the way that I kind of laid it out is I put all of my camping gear in one of the saddlebags and all of my clothing in the other saddlebag. And my grand plan was to have the top box empty with everything except for my laptop and a couple of electronic things. And that dream is dead. My top box is way more full than I wanted it to be, but I still have room. I can still take my jacket off. I wanted to do that because my grand dream was I wanted to be able to take my helmet off when I went to lunch or to go do a short hike and put it in my top box and lock it. And
right.
That's not happening.
So your helmet's going to lunch with you every time.
Yeah. Well, I have a cable lock too, so I can lock it to the bike. If it's just going to lunch, I'm going to be there within, reasonable sight distance of the bike. If I'm going if I wanted to do a hike, I kind of have to gauge, I think, where I'm at and how comfortable I am with locking it to the bike. But yeah, beyond that, I think you're probably wanting to think about how I actually pack it in that stuff, because I have a lot.
Yes,
I have a lot of extra stuff that I don't always bring because I'm covering so many different climates and things. When I take a summer trip, most of the time, I kind of have to think maybe the coldest temperatures I'm going to hit are, maybe 50 degrees at night or something like that. You don't have to think about below freezing and 100-degree heat and rain and tropical weather and mountainous weather and all this stuff. So I have to pack it all. So most of the stuff, I have my extras here, so I can show you. Almost everything I have
good pre-planning.
Packing cubes. Yeah, I have packed in packing cubes like this, and these are compression cubes. So you can open up the expander, and and you can put everything in, and then you can cinch it down, and it compresses. So it goes from a lot wider, and then it compresses it down. So, for example, this
almost
one
like a
is
bag.
Yeah, this one is all of my shirts that I'm taking for the entire trip. And I have, one kind of long sleeve shirt, and then the rest of it is just t-shirts. And so that's all the shirts I'm taking. I have another packet that's the same thing that is for pants. I have one for, socks. I have one for my long underwear, thermal layers. I have one where I have, a down jacket and a raincoat and things like that. So it's all it's all broken up into, I think I have 7 of those. When you add them all together, I think I have 7 of those pouches that I'll pack all my clothes. And then I also have one sort of just toiletry bag that I have all of the little miscellaneous stuff in, sunscreen and, like a spare towel, a little microfiber towel, chapstick. I have a couple little lights and stuff for when I'm camping, and just, stuff like that all goes in there. All the stuff you think of, you're going to use day to day. And so that's also easy, when you're staying in a hostel too, that makes it easy. You just grab your toiletry bags and you go to the restroom and, take a shower and do all that stuff. Yeah, I did shave again. That may be the last time. I decided that there was no room and no point of trying to pack any kind of beard trimmer or razor, because I don't like to straight razor my face. I break out and it really irritates my skin, so I never do it. That's part of why I always have a beard. So I'll figure out along the way, if the beard gets bothersome, there's going to be a barber that can trim it as I need to. So we'll find out. That's where we'll really find out how good my Spanish skills are, is when I go to a Spanish barber and find out what I come out looking like.
I think you just need to let it go the whole trip, no matter how long it is, and see what you look like when you get back.
Well, back to finding the Spanish-speaking sugar mama. If I'm a little clean cut, I might have a better chance at that.
Literal mama, you look like a baby. And so, what are you bringing, for cookware? A lot of people pack a bunch of stuff to cook with, but it doesn't seem like you'd be able to do that with such a long trip and all the clothes you have to pack.
I have quite a bit. So normally this is one of the few things that I really changed from what I normally do. Normally I can show that because I knew you were going to ask this question, so I brought it. So my cookware set that I have is collapsible. So I'll get in here. Some sporks and stuff to eat and stir with. But for example, like the cups, they're flat and then they expand out and collapse. And it's the same with down to the cooking pot. So this set has both a frying pan with it, and then it has a cooking pot. And the cooking pot expands up as well. So I have all of that stuff. And then, so I always bring that no matter what. And then usually I bring a jet boil as well. And this trip I decided not to bring a jet boil because they use the butane canisters. And I'm not really sure what the availability of those canisters is going to be and how easy they're going to be to get a hold of. So I wanted something that was a lot more versatile. So what I decided to do was I got a universal fuel stove. And what this does is it connects to a gas bottle. So I can run it off of diesel or unleaded gasoline or paraffin or jet fuel. I could probably run it off of whale oil if I could find it. So that's the plan for that. And then I can just, especially since I have a carbureted bike that's gravity fed, I can just pop the fuel line off of my motorcycle and fill up the little bottle for that. If I need gasoline, I don't need to buy anything. And then the last thing I have is instead of the jet, So instead of the jet boil, I'm also bringing this because it does double duty. It's just a small camping cooking pot, but it's a nice thing for a nice size for just heating water for making coffee and things like that, where I would normally use the jet boil. But my jet boil container didn't fit on the legs of that universal stove that I bought, whereas this does. And so inside of it, then I have my AeroPress. that I bring for making coffee, and then I just have an extra pot for heating water and just making coffee. So basically, the only reason I'm packing this is because I'm a coffee drinker and I cannot start my morning without coffee. So I would probably honestly leave socks behind before I left my coffee stuff behind.
You're going to South America where there's coffee everywhere.
All I need to do is buy it, and I have the AeroPress, so I can make my coffee. So yeah, that's really my cooking gear.
Nice.
Which was able to translate for. We'll have her.
She's trying real hard to go on this trip with you, I think.
Okay. She's got all the time and she's got the gear. Just point that truck and trailer south, Des.
Now, you're bringing that stuff to cook with. Now, obviously, you're going to be drinking lots of water. It's going to be hot, so I imagine you probably have a Camelback. But is there anything else you're bringing that you have with you at all times in case you run into a situation?
For food and drink type stuff?
Yeah.
Not really, other than
kind of
water.
like an emergency supply.
I really don't. I mean, I usually keep a couple of staples, and I don't know, this is going to change as I go to different places and use it, because you get what you can get. But I almost always try to keep a thing of like canned meat, like canned chicken or something like that, because it's really easy to transport. It's not going to go bad on you, and you can, it's easy to cook. So, that'll kind of change. And then usually I try to keep some rice or something like that, because at the end of the day, you can have rice and chicken, right? That's a decent enough meal, and it packs to nothing. It's easy to prepare. It's easy to do. We really, other than, unless I know I'm going remotely, having more than one meal extra is not really anything I think about, because I'm not going to get stuck long enough. I don't think, unless I'm planning to be somewhere, that I'm going to need more than an overnight meal extra. On this trip, so much of this is pretty heavily populated, especially through Central America. I'm going to be going in and out of small towns and staying in hotels and eating in restaurants for a lot of it.
Okay. And so you're not worried about needing an emergency supply of food in case you get trapped somewhere in the middle of nowhere, because you're not going to be in the middle of nowhere for very long.
Yeah, I mean, even if I am, I'll know that I'm going to the middle of nowhere, and then I might pack extra. When I go do that off-road route in Bolivia, I'm going to probably have 3 or 4 or 5 days worth of food, stuffed in my bike, because I know I'm going to be doing something like that. But yeah, I mean,
you need to bring an empty backpack with you so you can load it up on days like that.
I actually, that's one of the things I do have packed. I have a really lightweight backpacking backpack that's actually a good sized one. So one of the things I really enjoy backpacking, and especially when I get to Patagonia, there's a couple, overnight or 2 or 3 day routes, especially in some of the Patagonia national parks and stuff. I want to be able to go do some backpacking. So I actually have a frameless ultralight backpacking backpack with me, so I can go do some of that stuff. So if I need to, yeah, I could stuff extra stuff in that and put it on, or instead of being stuffed in the bottom. It's the very bottom layer of my top box is that backpack down there. Then my laptop in a padded bag goes on top of that, and then the drone and all the electronics. Then it all straps down together.
Nice. So you've obviously been prepping for this for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been gathering stuff as I've needed it. And like I said, a lot of the camping gear is really stuff that I use every summer when I do a motorcycle trip. That didn't change. It was, I changed the stove and that I use instead of using a jet boil, and the rest of it is all the same stuff I used last year on all my trips.
So you have a lot of experience packing it up and packing it up well.
Yeah, well, I don't know about well, but I pack it up a lot.
You got most everything you wanted where you wanted it. So to me, that's pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's ever ridden and camped with me knows that it's kind of a, sometimes it's kind of a, it's a laughable matter watching me pack up and unpack things. But yeah,
Mike and Bart to comment on that.
So, yeah, one of them will laugh at me.
How much of the trip do you have actually already planned out?
really zero. I don't even know where I'm staying the first night.
No kidding. So you're just
Yeah,
pointing south and going that way.
what I have is I have a lot of push pins and things I want to see, and the rest of it is going to be connecting all those dots and finding the routes to get there. I, you know, uh, like I said, I don't know, even the first day, I don't know what time I'm actually going to get rolling out, and I don't know how far I'm going to make it. I'm gonna go down the coast until Central California, and then I'm going to go over to Death Valley and Joshua Tree and all that. Um, so, I've ridden the Oregon coast a gazillion times. I know the Oregon coast. So, but I don't know if I'm going to get, halfway down it or 3/4 of the way down it. And, when I get tired for the day, I'm going to stop and just get a cheap hotel or camp, depending on what the weather's doing that day.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm a planner. If I don't know where I'm going to be for the next few nights, I'm getting nervous.
Yeah, it's too much to wrap your head around. If you said, try to set out what you're going to do for the next 400 days, it's too much to try to plan. You just can't. And there's too many things that are going to happen and go wrong.
For like a week.
And the worst thing on a trip is when you have a reservation for somewhere and you're way behind, or you have to make a choice of not seeing something or getting to your reservation. And I don't like to be in that spot. I want to be able to stop and enjoy the things that are enjoyable and move along when I want to. And if I want to stay 2 or 3 days in a spot, I can and enjoy it, and then right on to the next thing. And trying to plan any more than that equals it's just an impossible task, and it's setting myself up for being disappointed and not making things and being behind and feeling like I'm not going to get there and all that stuff.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to that, you being willing to do that kind of thing and going out and doing it. And I'm just envious because if I didn't know where I was going to be in a week, I'd probably be just freaking out and ruin my whole trip anyway.
Yeah, the hard part is that the longer you go, the harder it is to plan. Even if you try to plan for you, an Alaska trip, if you tried to plan every day, by 12 or 13 days in, you're either going to be behind or you're going to have missed something you wanted to stop at or didn't do. Trying to hit those plans. The shorter the trip is, the easier it is to hit those. The more days you have on that, the more chances there are for something to not line up right or not be what it is. Or the road that you thought was going to take you 2 hours takes you 7 hours because it's a lot harder than you thought, and then you're perpetually behind. And I think it's just easier to not have plans. There's very few places, unless you show up at a big event and something, there's almost always a hotel or a guest house or something, available wherever you go.
Well, and I've done some shorter, week-long trips, and I've done that where, I didn't have a set place to stay or anything. And like you said, pretty much, especially here, you just find a hotel wherever you get and spend the night there. Had all my camping gear with me, never used it because I'd show up someplace kind of late, and I'm like, let's get a hotel.
Yeah, it's usually pretty easy. I mean, you can make the mistake of, you show up in a small town and it happens to be some big event in that town and everything's booked out for that weekend. That stuff's happened. But then you ride 30 more miles to the next town and there's something. It's not that big of an inconvenience.
When I went down to the Everglades, and in Everglades City, which is kind of, I guess, on the Gulf Coast, right down near the tip there, got there, they were having their big fish festival or something. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but we go rolling through there, and there was just people everywhere. We're like, okay, should we stop and get something or keep on going?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff's happened. I've shown up at campgrounds that I thought I was going to camp at, and even without a reservation, and the campground's completely full. And there's there's always an adjustment. There's always something you can figure out.
I guess that's what makes it so much of an adventure, is that you don't know exactly where you're going to be, when you're going to be, and how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about Jupiter's Travels, just riding and hoping.
Yep. Yeah, although you should pop back up new bikers insurance question, because that's a good one too.
It was a good one.
And I will answer that as best as I can, new, because this is going to be, there's a few extra things that you know, you England and European folks, and I don't know how it works in Australia. I don't know if they have the same problem system as we do, or if it's more like the Europeans. But
Pete, that's a
one of the
question
things
for
I
you.
have, one of the things I have to do is keep U.S. health insurance, which means I actually have to purchase a year or 18 months worth of health insurance here in the U.S. I also have evacuation and travel insurance. So if something happens for any reason, I need to be repatriated back to the US for healthcare or security concerns or anything else like that, that I'm unable to get in whatever location I'm at, that will cover that. But if that happens, I have to be covered under US healthcare to be able to, not go bankrupt in the process of it, of getting that. So I have that. For the bike, it varies from country to country. Most countries, you get third-party liability insurance. When you get to the border, you purchase a short-term policy for third-party liability. Very few places will do any sort of vehicle coverage. So if something happens to my bike, it's a write-off. That's the cost of doing something like this. Is very few places are going to cover that. The travel insurance, for anybody who's thinking about doing this, you have to call around and talk to different places, because what a policy covers and what you're doing, and you have to be real transparent with them. And a lot of places won't cover motorcycle use, and a lot of them, if they say they do, they might cover a sub 125cc one. So if you rent a scooter in Greece, for example, right, that's what they're assuming you're doing, not riding a 650cc motorcycle across continents. So you have to find a place that's willing to cover that and make sure that it's specifically stated in the policy.
Were you able to find
really
like a one-stop shopping for that, or did you have to do multiple insurances?
No, I have one. That one's a one-stop. I have multiple. You have to carry a couple different insurance policies for evacuation type stuff. The tricky part of this is, again, this is insurance jargon and insurance industry stuff that you learn when you start researching stuff like this. The manner in how you contact help if you need it in emergency really dictates what kind of insurance you need. For example, I have a Garmin InReach with the SOS button on it. And the normal evacuation insurance you carry, if you hit the SOS button on your Garmin, they don't cover it. They only cover it if you get hurt and you call them and you say, I need you to initialize my rescue, because then they can work with the people that they know they have contracts and agreements with in those countries and things like that. They won't, so they may not pay for your Garmin. So you have to have insurance through Garmin so that if you hit the SOS button, you're on a policy that covers that SOS button. But they may not cover other things that you're doing. So I actually have two kind of emergency situation insurance policies so that I'm covered a couple of different ways. And it's stuff you have to ask those questions. You have to, go in with an open mind. And it's, I hope my mom's not watching. My mom just this week subscribed to my YouTube channel. That was a funny conversation. She sent me a text and said, I'm subscribing to your YouTube. I was like, I didn't even know you YouTubed, Mom. So if Mom's watching, hopefully, hopefully she doesn't get, freaked out. But you have to be really honest about kind of the worst case scenarios of things that can happen and how they might happen, and talk to insurance companies about that. If I fall off my bike and I break my femur in the Bolivian desert and I have to hit the SOS button, am I covered? Right. If I'm in Nicaragua and I break my neck and, get hauled off in an ambulance to whatever the local hospital is, am I covered? What's covered? And ask those questions in a bunch of different scenarios to make sure that you you have some kind of coverage, or at least an understanding of what you're going to be paying for in the event that it happens, so that you can cover it. Because, especially, I think the Americans in the group will understand this maybe more than some other countries, but you can pretty easily bankrupt yourself with healthcare if you end up in a scenario where you need significant stuff done and you don't have coverage for it.
Did you learn all that from other folks that you've been in contact with, or is this something that you just kind of figured out on your own as you?
It was a combination of research and phone calls. As great as the internet is, no matter what information you find on the internet, you need to verify it, and verify it with whoever you're getting your insurance through. Regardless of what somebody says or what somebody says their experience is, read the paperwork, check the paperwork, and talk to the people writing the policy and find out what it really does cover.
But you got to know to ask the questions.
You've got to know to ask the questions, yeah. And that's where you find out from people who said, you hear stories of, I had travel insurance and I hit the SOS on my Garmin and it cost me $15,000 from search and rescue fees because I didn't have the Garmin coverage or whatever.
Right. And they didn't know to ask that question before they went.
Mm-hmm.
I know you were talking about doing the immersion language. How long were you planning on spending there? And is there any other places that you're going to spend extra time at?
Yeah, I'm planning to spend about a month there doing the immersion course. I hope it's my plan. I guess depending on extra time, it depends on how you say that. There's places that I know that I want to spend several days at because of the area that they're at. One of the things I hope that it works out, I'd really like to do is when I get to Ushuaia, Argentina, I would love to take a cruise to Antarctica, because how often are you going to be somewhere close enough to get a cruise ship to Antarctica? Hey, that's something I certainly want the chance to try to do. But there's a lot of things I don't, I'm going to find places that I enjoy, and when I find them, I'll stay a little longer. There's a mix of, you always kind of want to keep moving a little bit, but you want to enjoy the times when you find the places that are good. And I'm going to try to find that balance along the way.
See the sights, don't just ride through.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things, right? You're going to spend time when you go. I want to go to obviously Machu Picchu, right, and stuff like that. That's a train ride in. You have to stay overnight. You have to get your ticket for that day, a train ride back out. That's going to take you a few days just in the logistics of going to Machu Picchu.
So again, it sounds like you've got the idea of how you want to do it, but you're not making any specific plans because every day it can change just a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I have a whole bunch of push pins, and I'm going to try to link those push pins together and see as many of them as I can on my way. And, what I'm doing is, if I feel like I'm ahead of schedule, I can slow the pace down and spend more time not off the bike and seeing stuff. If I feel like I'm behind schedule, I can put in some days of covering more ground on the bike and less time off the bike until I get caught up.
Excellent. I mean, that, again, just the whole idea of it just amazes me. I love it. I hope to see you on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff the whole trip, so I can just kind of live vicariously through your pictures and stuff.
Well, I'm excited to share it. As much as I really sort of started the YouTube channel really sort of with this trip in mind, and saying I'd like to get a feel for how to film things and how to document them and how to share them, and get some practice at it. And hopefully I keep getting better at it and it's more compelling. But part of it is I want to make the stuff that I want to rewatch, down the line, because it's a way to document what I'm doing as much as it is to share it with people.
Yep. I think that's a common thing with most of us, is that when we started the YouTube channel, we were just documenting it for our future selves or our, children or grandchildren or whatever. But we do end up wanting to make better videos. We want to get better at what we're doing. And your videos, because of where you are, it's just amazing to me how beautiful it is out there, and the way you do it with the drone and all the other shots from the bike, off the bike. You do a great job with it. I can't wait to see what you're doing on this trip.
Well, and it makes sense when you kind of, if you look back after I say something like that, you kind of realize that what I've been doing is testing out making travel videos, just doing it locally or semi-locally,
Right.
That's kind of the style of my video is done. So it's geared towards doing this type of trip and sharing it.
Practice makes perfect. Or as Rich would say, practice. All right, Rich, finish it for me. Practice makes progression. Practice makes progression. Is that what you say, Rich? Come on, I need you now.
Let's see. I can answer a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say I can answer a couple quick hitters here. So for new biker, I'm taking a laptop with me. I can't edit on a phone. I need too much horsepower, and the stuff that I do takes a lot of storage. There was that one. I saw another one about how far into Brazil I'm planning to go. That is yet to be determined. I certainly want to go to, and I can never pronounce it right. What is it? Ignazu Falls, right there on the border of Argentina and Brazil. That's something I can't be. I can't be in South America and not go see that. But how far into Brazil I go, I don't know yet. I'll feel it out when I'm there and decide where I'm at on my trip.
Nice.
Eddie's probably there. Yeah, Eddie's probably there to fix the pronunciation for us.
Yeah, he's close enough on the pronunciation thing. Yeah, new biker, he probably knows how to pronounce it. I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah. What he said there. Yeah, no, it's not very far. It's right on the border, right? I can technically see the falls without ever going into Brazil. I think if I wanted, I would think right between Uruguay and Argentina. You don't have to be on the Brazilian side to see the falls, but yeah, we'll see. There's some family history with Brazil that I've got to kind of overcome some nerves about that. Yeah, at some point I'll figure out.
That sounds like a whole other story.
It's not my story to tell, so I will leave it at that. But yeah.
Nope. Somebody asked this earlier, I think, in the chat, and I missed it. Do you know? And of course, you've done a ton of research, so I bet the answer is yes. But do you know where you can and can't fly your drone in all these different places?
Yeah, I do. And there's a couple. One of them that's really tricky is Nicaragua. And Nicaragua just changed their rules. So I don't know how much of Nicaragua I'm even going to be able to document and how I'm going to do it. But Nicaragua, you cannot bring a drone in, period, whether you plan to fly it or not. It's not even that you can't fly it. They will. It's a completely no bring it in, but they just changed their laws. And now, because they don't want any foreign press coming in, they will not allow you to bring more than one personal recording device, whether that's a phone or a camera or what. You only get one, technically, at the border. So I am going to have to figure out exactly what I'm going to do and which one I'm going to bring and how I'm going to try to document that part of the trip. I'm not really, I don't want to push my limits and find out, trying to do something that is questionably legal. I'm going to put it all in a DHL box at a DHL location, ship it to Costa Rica, and pick it up at a DHL office in Costa Rica when I get on the other side of it. But it makes for an interesting thing to try to figure out how to vlog and show it. But I guess that's what they don't want, is they don't want people to vlog and show Nicaragua. So that's it. I'm in their country, their rules. So.
Right. How long you think you'll be in Nicaragua?
Yeah, I mean, it's a small country. I could be through it in probably one day if I wanted, but then I don't get to see anything. There's some really interesting stuff that I'd like to see in Nicaragua. So,
Mhm. You're just gonna have trouble documenting it.
It's gonna have trouble documenting it. Yeah, it'll just be a different type of video. I may leave all of I may ship all the GoPros and the drones, and I may just, have my camera. So it may be all off the bike talking head stuff for that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of brings me back to that question I had up there: is how are you planning on keeping us up to date on it? Or are you?
No, with my Instagram and the YouTube channel, those those are going to be the best places. It's obviously going to lag a little bit behind. There's just no real way that I'm going to be able to give people real time type updates of where I'm at. Everything's going to lag a little bit behind, but how far behind we're going to find out. It depends on how fast I edit videos and how fast I'm moving. And I can't guarantee anything with that, and I'm certainly not going to try to make any promises. I have some goals. Like I said, I'd like to do a once a week video instead of once every 2 weeks, but that may 2 weeks into the trip, that may prove to be unfeasible, and the videos may just come out when they come out, and it may be sporadic. There may not be a schedule. Who knows?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to mind too much if it's sporadic when you're on a trip like this, as long as we get something.
And so Road Reality did bring up, that's a good comment. So one way I will update, and I'm going to try to, is some live streams. I don't really have any desire to live stream by myself or do it on my channel, but I certainly would doing something like this, like we're doing on your channel, do it on Road Reality's channel, on Tomex, like we did. I'll keep in touch with people, and we'll plan ahead, in a few days that we'll do a live, and I'll pop on and kind of give people an update on how things going, how the gear's holding up, how I'm holding up, things like that.
Because you can do lives on Instagram and Facebook too if you wanted just a quick one.
Yep. I could. There's always the balance though of when it's a publicly accessible account, there's a certain amount of maybe not advertising exactly where you're at. So there's a line to be walked there.
Right. And I think that's a smart thing, so that they don't know exactly where you are.
Yeah. And for Pete, yes, Itchy Boots did vlog there. But recently Charlie Sinuan did not, because of the same problem. I believe the change was somewhere around the first of the year or the end of last year. So it's a pretty recent change. It's certainly since Nora Lee went through there. The drone thing has always been a thing though. That's been for years, but the camera limitation is a very new one. And I know Charlie Sinuan tried to go to the border, and they basically told him they didn't want him in the country because they know he's a vlogger, let alone the camera gear. So it didn't go well for him. So he turned around and shipped his bike around Nicaragua. Didn't go through.
You think you'll ever have an issue like that where you run into a big problem that makes you have to go around?
I hope not. And the purpose of the videos that I try to do and what I try to show isn't to show the dramatic side of things. I have no desire to film border interactions with border agents to try to show drama. That's not my style. I want to show the cool places to go and things that people might not ever get a chance to see in person in their life. And I want to show that stuff, and then show what it's like to travel and do that stuff, kind of day in and day out. I think that people share their version of their trip however they want to share it. And I think some people like to make it look really good, and some people like to make it very dramatic, and some people like to just show the day in and day outs. And I'm more of the day in and day out type.
Well, that's cool, because the drama and stuff, that might make for good video for some things, but I like watching your channel because of the scenery, because of the roads you're on, and you. So it'd be cool if this trip was those things, showing where you're at, how you got there, and how you're enjoying yourself while you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get more comfortable at the me part of that. You know, I prefer, and that's why my videos are what they are, is I prefer to show the roads and the riding. You know, I try to pick the twistiest, most interesting parts of the roads to show, along with the most scenic parts. And I've tried to do a lot of riding footage, you know, less off the bike stuff and more riding stuff, because that's the stuff I enjoy and that I like to film, because I don't have to be in front of the camera personally. So, but I'm
It's
doing
so
this, you
funny.
know. I'm gonna say, you know, doing this
It's
is
so
I
funny
should
how
be in
many
front
of
of
us
the
are
camera
like
more.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I know you're the same way, and
we do this.
you're working on it.
Yeah, I think so many of us are like that. We're doing the YouTube thing, but we don't like to be on camera ourselves. So it's kind of a battle to try to make it happen, because I know I want to, and I know it looks better when you do, but I hate taking the camera off and pointing it at myself. And so
Yeah, and I get incredibly awkward. You know, the clips where I am off bike, there's so many retakes and so many edits in that to make it even passable. I feel so awkward talking to a camera. It's not my thing. But yeah,
it's so true.
we know you do, John. That's why you wear a half helmet, so you can be in front of the camera even when you're riding the motorcycle. We all hide behind our tinted visors.
Right. Yep. He's out there for everybody. Yep. He's loving it. You know, he's living the good life. So I guess as we kind of wind this down a little bit, is there anyone along the way that you know of that you want to try to meet up with, or you just happen to be in the area, you might just try to reach out?
You know, I don't know any. I don't really know anybody specifically. I follow a moto vlogger in Brazil, and he's in São Paulo, and I know he's mentioned if I come through, he'd like to show me around São Paulo and get a chance to ride together. But I don't know if I'm going to go that far into Brazil. I haven't decided.
Is that
I have
Pedro?
some, you know. No, it's
okay.
And you know, other than that, I can't say specifically that I have anybody in mind that I'm planning to meet, or any other creators. You know, it'd be fun to meet up with some people that I follow that are doing the trips that are kind of on a similar trajectory, and we might end up at some of the same places just because of timing. So if if that works out and I run across them, that'd be great. But I haven't reached out to them and said, you know, let's try to meet up. So
okay. Again, this is your trip. You don't want to make it that you're part of somebody else's trip.
Yeah, and you know, you don't know where people are. You don't know how people are. You know, it's one thing to see somebody on the internet, and it's another thing to meet up with them. But we've all run across that, you know. But we'll see. I'm sure that, you know, as I do it, I'll meet people. That's the nature of doing something like this, is you're going to find other stuff. Yeah, and bar with my dilly dallying. I don't know that dilly dallying's being awkward. I'm just slow going in the morning. It takes me a while to get going.
If a friend of yours is calling you awkward, what's going to happen when you with strangers?
You know, I do the best I can.
That's all we can ask, right? So,
yeah.
Do you?
Thank you, new biker, and thank you for spending 2 hours of your late middle of the night to come watch us. You know, that's about as big of a compliment as as you can give us, is to spend your time watching this. Yeah, and that goes for everybody, not just new biker.
Right. But for new biker, it's like 1:30 in the morning, and he's staying up because he happens to not have to work tomorrow. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for the compliments and all the great questions.
Specific time frame.
Yeah. Do you have a time that you really want to be back by, or is it like everything else, you just don't care? What happens, happens?
Well, it depends. If my mom's watching, my parents' 50th wedding anniversary is in 2024. And so I will be back, whether I'm back with the bike or whether I park the bike where I'm at and I fly back for it for that one way or the
Okay.
other.
Okay.
But that's, later in the year in 2024. So like I said, as I can realistically be gone 18 months before I have any obligation. The rest of it is going to come down to budget and when I want to come home and weather. It kind of all
Mm, okay.
depends. But yeah, the original plan was if I go down and back, the round trip should take me about 18 months. So that was really
Okay.
what I kind of planned the whole
So,
thing around.
and so what month of the year is your parents' anniversary?
It is the end of July.
Okay. So
But
yeah, you've got a year plus for that. And
right.
if you're still out on the road somewhere far away, you can just fly home, spend the time with them, and then fly back to your bike.
Yeah, as long as I'm in a country that allows you to do that. Some countries are really strict about if you enter the country with a vehicle, you need to leave the country with the vehicle. You can't leave it parked there. Some are less strict about it, and some have paperwork that you just need to file to be able to do it for situations like that. You kind of got to figure out where you're at and decide. And yeah, like return when the money's gone. That's certainly an option in the plan. Not that I know of, John.
he had to put that out there. And so, what are your plans when you return, as far as not so much the motorcycle, but do you think you're going to park the bikes for months at a time? Okay, I just spent all this time on a bike. I'm just going to leave that and concentrating on something else for a little while. I'm going to go back to work right away. What are you thinking it's going to look like when you get back?
I mean, I'm going to have to go back to work in some reasonable type of time. The plan is I have some money for when I come back to use to make it one until I find a job and get reestablished and all that. But assuming that there's some time gap in there that takes me, so we'll see. I mean, I have to come back and get a job at some point. I can't do this I'm not retiring, right? I can't do this indefinitely unless something significantly changes with my YouTube channel, and I turn into the next Itchy Boots.
Right. Yep.
But even if that happened, I don't know that it's, I enjoy my career. I enjoy my work. So, I don't know that being a full-time traveler is ever really something that I'm interested in. If the opportunity came up, I'd really have some tough decisions to make on if I wanted to. But yeah, the plan is to come back. I'm a Portland kid. I was born here. My family's from here. All my friends are here. I have no reason to not come back here and just kind of resume life again as best I can after this.
It's funny you say that, Portland kid and all that, because I always tell people, he said, you're missing out, not living in kind of the general area I do. Like Bronco Ride just moved to the other side of these mountains in Tennessee, and I've got all this great riding. Yours is better, so I can't say that to you. You get higher than I do.
Yeah, but you have some great riding there. I watch your videos and I look at those scores. I'm like, that is as tight as twisty as anything we have here too. And
right.
You
it's fun. I love it. I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere. So, is there anything that I didn't ask that the commenters didn't ask that you kind of wanted to talk about?
No, I don't know. I mean, other than the huge thank you to everybody who's watched it and certainly who supports the channel and watches my stuff. It means the world to me, especially the comments. And I'm not falling off the face of the planet. There's going to be a lot of times that I'm going to be up in my own head, in my helmet. So if you enjoy a video, if you're thinking about me, if you enjoy a post, comment, send me a message, send me a something and say hi. That's going to mean the world to me to know that the people that I know are interested in what I'm doing and are still following along.
Well, I can guarantee you that there are going to be a lot more people following along by the time you're done than when you start. just because it is something that I think we're all somewhat interested in.
Yeah, we'll see, but whatever happens, if if the same 100 people who watch every one of my videos watches is as big as I ever get, that is all I need to motivate me to make the videos, just the people that do watch and the comments that I get and the friendships, I wouldn't have ever, we probably never crossed paths in real life, Patrick, if it wasn't for this YouTube thing. And so,
Exactly.
that makes it all worth it, no matter what the number of people that watch it are.
And I agree 1,000% with that. The comments are the best part of the YouTube for me, but the meeting people, there's Rich and Cake, Boots and Jeans Riders. They live out in California. They live a heck of a lot closer to you than me, and I've got to ride with them across some of the greatest roads around here. It's just it's crazy how that stuff happens.
Yep, and I got to meet Tom and Jody last summer, and that
right, all the way from Pennsylvania.
That was fantastic, all the way from Pennsylvania, and got to ride with them and show them the waterfalls up here, and that was a blast. So it's definitely neat, but it will truly mean a lot to me, along the way, because there's gonna, like I said, there's gonna be a lot of nights in a hotel room by myself editing a video where those messages and people asking how I'm doing and where I'm at, and stuff are going to be my interaction with the world that I know. That I really hope that people do reach out to me on that stuff. Don't feel like you can't. I'd actually really appreciate it.
And that goes for you too. No matter where you are, what you're doing, it's simple to talk on Messenger or text messages or whatever. Reach out, even if you just need to talk because you haven't talked to anybody for a few days.
Yeah, I need to speak English again.
Right, you need to hear English. So, I guess my final thought on all of this is, how excited I am for you about this, because it is something that is just so out there and awesome. How do you top it? What's next?
That's a tough one. I like to say, because funny enough, this is me and Mike. If Mike is still watching, I don't know if he had to go. He's traveling right now on the East Coast, so it might be past his bedtime. I don't know. But Mike and I joke often that everybody tells us whatever trip we're doing sounds like the trip of a lifetime. And I'm on about my 5th trip of a lifetime at this point. So, I never like to think, I never like to think like that, because, I guess it seems like a fatalistic type of view of the world to think that what I'm doing now is the biggest or best thing I'm going to do. I always have more planned. I always have more to go. And Mike will attest to this as well. When we talk about our summer trip and Mike goes, do you have any trips in mind? And I'll tell him, I've got 9 trips stored on my computer. How many days do we need routes for? I have them organized by 6-day trips, 7-day trips, 8-day trips, so there's always awesome. More to see. And the next one might not be an 18-month trip. It might be a 1-month trip, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be something new, exciting, and a new challenge. India is definitely on the list. I have a funny story about India, actually. This is one that everybody can appreciate. And I've never told it on my YouTube channel. I know John's asked me I said I should just do a story time and tell it in a moto vlog at some point. But when I did the Alaska trip, I met a guy from Mumbai on the side of the road in the Yukon, and we were stopped waiting for a construction flagger, and I'm sitting there, and this little teeny bike pulls up next to us, and this little man from India gets off of it and comes over, and looks us up and down, looks our bike up, introduces himself, and says, where are you coming from? Where are you going to? We're like, we're from Portland, Oregon. We rode up here. We're on our way, into Alaska and then around Alaska. And we, how about you? And he points at the side of his bike, and on his pannier, it says, Mumbai, London, Alaska, Los Angeles on the side of his panniers. He says, Mumbai. He says Mumbai, Istanbul, London, Toronto, here. And this is in the middle of the Yukon. And he's on this tiny little, it's like 110cc two-stroke Indian built motorcycle. It's like a Bajaj brand or something like that. And he looks at me and points at, I was on the V-Strom, and he points at the V-Strom and goes, how long between the oilings? And I'm thinking, he's talking about the oil changes. So I do some conversion in my head, 6,000 miles to kilometers. So I told him, 10,000 kilometers. He goes, oh, no. He's not between the changes, between the adding.
Oh, no kidding.
And I'm like, I don't. And I point at his bike and I go, how long? He goes, 70, 80 kilometers. And I'm just like,
and he's adding oil?
I'm like, oh no, this guy has traveled halfway around the world on this little motorcycle, adding oil to the thing every 50 miles. Yeah, but
wow.
Nicest man. And he ended up camping with us that night. So I told him where we were stopping to camp at, because he said, where are you going? And we told him where we were camping, and that it was at a hot springs, and we had to explain what a hot springs was to him. And so he shows up at the hot springs 2 hours behind us, and it was, 70 miles down the road, but it still took him 2 hours longer to get there. And he ended up camping that night with us. And then we met up with him again somewhere around Fairbanks. We crossed paths in pouring down rain, and he's, got shopping bags rubber banded around his boots and stuff to stay dry. But we exchanged information. He said, if you ever want to come ride in India, talk to me, and I would love to take you around and show you India on a motorcycle. And so that was the plan. The year that we went to Morocco, we were initially going to go to India, and just the timing of, he was going to be out of the country on vacation when we were going to be there, and it just didn't work out. And so we ended up looking at a map, and my brother sort of said, I can get to Portugal real easy. And we looked at a map and said, Morocco is, if we all get to Portugal or southern Spain, we can just pop on a ferry and go to Morocco, and Morocco's adventure riding paradise. So that's how we ended up there. Long ways around was we ended up in Morocco because I met an Indian man on the side of the road in the Yukon.
That's funny. Yeah. It would be so cool if you did actually meet up with him in India at some point.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, and talk about that guy has got to have, he told us some of the stories from his travels and trips, just, riding a bike that small for sure. And that could have been, he may have been adding the oil for the two-stroke, because I do think it was a 110 two-stroke, Paul. So he was probably having to add oil for the mixture every 50 miles. It was just a funny conversation to, yeah. I had no idea. I assumed he was talking about oil changes, and he certainly was not.
He's carrying it with him and adding it like candy,
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I guess I think I've covered all the questions I had.
We have, unless anybody else in the chat has any other questions.
Yeah, please put them in there. Is there anything that I didn't ask or he didn't answer?
And if you come up with a new one tomorrow, shoot me a message on Instagram, and I will answer it the best.
I'm sure I'll have like 10 of them tomorrow that I forgot to ask today. I've already been asking you a ton of stuff.
Well, I hope that it got it answered. Like I said, is I don't often know, it's fun to hear what other people are interested in. I would never have thought to talk about the insurance, and if New Biker hadn't brought it up.
Yep. Because
it's just something, I guess, I figured everybody would, doing something like this, does research on what kind of insurance they need.
Yeah, and it's something so far out of my realm that it never even dawned on me to ask that question. I mean, I know about the spot tracker and all that, but not the insurance.
Yeah, thanks for staying up and watching, Mike. We're getting together as soon as you're back in town.
I thank everybody for coming along and for the comments. It's been great. Thank you. Thank you, Dewey. This has just been awesome to me. I'm super excited for you, and I can't wait to follow along, see how this all goes.
Yeah, well, we'll do it again, along the way. You had all the gear questions. So, after I've done this for a few months, we'll get on and find out what worked and what didn't and what fell apart and what failed,
right.
And go through it all again.
what you needed to purchase, what you needed to send back.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that, keeping up with, how everything goes, what you have to send back. Hey, Tomek's here.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw him early in the comments. I think he's just been quiet in the comments.
Oh, okay. I of course, going back and forth a little bit here between that. So again, thank you, and thank your sister for allowing you to do it.
Yeah, well, she hasn't gotten home from work yet, so you would have heard her come in the door if she was home. So that was her who just called me.
Dang,
my phone just went off.
Oh,
probably called me to see if I wanted to meet her for dinner.
Oh,
I don't know if she would have wanted to get on the internet.
Well, I guess Tomek says he was hiding in the back of the room.
Yeah.
So everybody's wishing you well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and like I said, follow along and reach out to me. And any questions, comments, whatever. Feel free to shoot me a message. At least I'm still, at least I'm still a small channel. If I get big, I may not be able to answer all of the messages coming in, but we'll see.
Yeah, but you better know who you need to answer first.
I certainly will. Yeah, you have my phone number, so you can get a hold of me without the Instagram if you need to.
I'll be like, hey, I commented on your video, you didn't answer. What's up with that?
Yeah, that'll be the hard part. Like I said, I don't know traveling how much, how quick I'll be able to answer comments and how quick the videos will be coming out. That'll be a field out. I'm going to do the best that I can, but until I'm on the road, I won't know how that works.
And I think most of us understand that. You post a video one night at some hotel and you're on the road the next morning. You may not even see our comments for a couple of days.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Usually I'm here and I'm working from home when I do my Friday videos and I release them in the morning. So, every, hour I can just real quick do a scroll through and reply to all the comments from the last hour and, I'm good to go.
Right.
That's going to change. So it may those comment responses may be delayed.
I'm thinking that might actually change for you, because I think as time goes on, I think your following and comments will probably start blowing up to the point where it will be very difficult to answer them all. So
yeah, we'll see.
Just give me a thumbs up on my comment. That way I know you read it.
And we'll take a shot at old John here. John, I can't afford an international travel plan with enough data to watch your videos as often as they come out.
You do put out a lot of videos, John. Yep. I don't know how you do it. All right. Well, go enjoy dinner. Go get dinner with your sister.
Will do. I'll go give her a call back. Thank you very much for having me on. I had fun. It's always great chatting with you, Patrick. It's a fun time. It's
thanks.
It's like we've been friends. It's like we've been friends for 20 years when we get online and chat. So it's really fun.
I love that. That's so awesome. And thank you for that. Thank you for coming on and answering all my weird ass questions.
Yeah, there we go. And John volunteered. I'll make you a moderator, John. You can respond to them all.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yep. Everybody stay safe, stay happy. What's the order? Is it stay happy, stay safe, or stay safe, stay happy?
I hope everyone can stay well, stay safe, and stay happy, y'all. Motor Ramblings and Dewey. See ya.